Diverse our world seems to be.
I love my innova.
Love when you try to look cool, but
Hey everyone, welcome to Independent Auto, where we offer you independent reviews, independent from bias. So today we're going to be talking about an interesting car, but a car that you probably see in a lot of sports car videos, like Porsche, Lamborghini, you name it out there. This car right here is probably the #1 most photobombed car that you'd probably see, which is kind of funny because it's always in the background. Today we are talking about the 2017 Toyota Innova 2.8 diesel G variant. Let's get on with the video, guys. As we speak about this car, well, let's just talk about a quick fact, a fun fact about this vehicle. So this car is called the Innova, and the reason it's called Innova when it was released in 2004 is because it was an innovation from its predecessor. And the predecessor of this vehicle is the Toyota Revo, if you guys remember that car from the 1990s, which was really practical, and a lot of people love to have it and love to buy it. But as this was the innovation from its time, this car is categorized as an MPV, just like the Revo was, which is a multi-purpose vehicle. It's not a van. A lot of people think of it as a van, but as an MPV, it's in between a van and a crossover, which for me and for a lot of people, it's the perfect fit for their day-to-day use. Let's dive deep into this. Okay, so now as we can see the front of the car, over here you have these plastic grills, which are very durable. They do the job, and the nice thing about the front of this car is that from the previous generation, the hood is much longer, which is something that's so much nicer because as you're driving, you can see the front of the hood, and also it gives you a gauge towards the front of the car so you avoid bumping them. As we come closer over here, we can see the sleek designs of the headlights compared to the previous model, which honestly looked more like a minivan and if I must say, a mom's car to a certain extent. But now they made it a little more sportier with this specific model from 2017 till present. So these lights are basically halogen. They're not the top of the line premium LED lights, as well as these ones in the bottom over here. So this is the new face and the new interior of the 2017. And you guys comment what you think about how the front compares to the previous model of 2015 and before that. So now looking at the engine, this specific model is the G variant. There are different variants out there. There's the J, the E, the G, and the V. The V being the top of the line variant, while the J being the lowest end of them all. I feel like this specific model is the sweet spot in terms of interior and also engine size and capabilities. However, there's also a gas-powered or petrol-powered variant, and that is a 2.0 liter, while this one gives you around 170 horsepower and 360 Newton meters of torque at 3,400 RPM. Which I think is really amazing. But this specific engine is a workhorse, and maintenance is really affordable, and also the overall components is just so well built, and that's how Toyota has always marketed their vehicles, to be reliable over time. Now this specific diesel engine gives you around 9 to 10 kilometers per liter on the city driving, and 10 to 12 kilometers per liter on the highway. So that's a summary of the engine, and let's look at the other parts of the car. Okay, so now talking about the rear. Now, there's not much of a big difference in the rear compared to the previous model, aside from the taillights itself and how it's slightly curved and more angled. Unlike the front, which looks like a significant difference from the previous model, this one has a more flat back. But there's a reason for that. It's because they're trying to create as much space as possible for the trunk to fit in people and also your items, whatever you need to stock in or load in to the trunk, which I think plays a really good role. Now, nice touches here, of course, are the chrome badges. They really look good. Of course, we see Innova Innovation 2.8 G. This is the mid-level. This is the diesel variant, as mentioned. So as we look over here, we open the trunk up, and we can see there's a massive amount of space. You can store a lot of things over here. In fact, you can push those seats downwards and store even more things. As this car is an MPV, it's a multi-purpose vehicle, you can even store your stocks here and use it as a business vehicle, taking trips to different places as needed. So as we can see over here, we have the seats, which come down, that can fit another 3 more people. In my opinion, only 2 can fit because it's a bit tight here, but they can say that this car is an 8-seater car, 2 in the front, 3 in the center, and 3 in the back, total of 8, which in my opinion, wouldn't be as comfortable but a maximum of 4 people with a lot of trunk space. It's good for perfect long trips or anything like that with that regard. Okay, so now talking about the rims, it's fairly simple, nothing fancy, straight to the point, but I like the design as it rolls. It has this nice effect to it. Toyota emblem in the center, 5 bolts, of course. This is the 205/65 R16 tires specifically being used for this model. And then there's also 48 for the mags itself. So over here in the front rims, same thing, but the brakes, however, in the front are disc brakes, while the ones in the back are basically drum brakes. Now, as we go over here to this portion, the G variant doesn't have a chrome side mirror. It's the same paint as the car itself. However, it does have chrome handles, which I think is a nice touch to the car. However, over here, there's something really interesting. There is this sort of protruding plastic that you might wonder, what is it for, Samir? What does it do? Is it aesthetic? Is it for that reason? Actually, no. These ones play a huge role when it comes to aerodynamics of cars. This one over here in particular helps wind noise sound much less when traveling on the highway at high speeds. And it also avoids vibrations of the vehicle, which is amazing how something so small can make a huge impact to a car like this. All right, so now let's take a look at the interior. So the first thing that I noticed that it's really nice about this car is how the colors have changed. The previous models didn't have so much color combinations, more over texture. This one has a nice texture on the sides, which I think is a nice contrast between the black, silver, and this orange tiger color. While the seats too have that similar characteristic. I think that it's a nice touch, and it's kind of sad if someone were to put seat covers, but you have to because you want to take care of your car, right? But point is, it's a huge upgrade from the previous colors, which were beige, pretty common, pretty basic. This strikes a more sporty but also luxurious look at the same time. But the next thing you'll notice is the first thing that you touch, of course, is the steering wheel. And the steering wheel is just so nice to hold because of the leather accents that it has, the beautiful chrome Toyota logo right stamped on the center, and this nice wooden feel and touch on top of it, which I think gives a very premium look to it, and as well gives me a similar vibe to a Land Cruiser and also to an Alphard combined. Now, let's look at the speedometer. So, going to the gauge clusters, it has different modes. Basically, you can see your range, how much gas mileage you have left. You can see also your eco indicator, which is a nice score that you could have in order to indicate how well and how efficiently you've been driving this car, as it has different modes, which we'll talk about in a moment. And also it has some sort of eco savings calculation, which is kind of funny because you can put the price of gasoline and then its fuel consumption and compare it to the previous amount that it is, considering the gas prices have been going up lately, and it's so different compared to how it was in the past. I mean, imagine diesel overtook petroleum at one point in these recent months. But looking at that altogether, we can see messages as well. If you have, let's say, an engine problem, or let's say you need to put oil. And also you have a settings portion where you can customize through different phone numbers and all that stuff and link it towards your infotainment system itself. So now talking about the infotainment system, it's simple, straight to the point. You have your keypad, which can call, contacts to see who you want to call, music, device, and settings. This is specifically for Bluetooth. However, the Bluetooth connectivity can be a bit off at times. It does not connect automatically when you start the car or reconnect with your phone. So sometimes you just have to refresh this button over here and restart your whole infotainment system. It's as simple as that, but everything is straight to the point, and I think it's an upgrade compared to the previous model because the previous models didn't even have such gauge clusters and you had to buy them aftermarket. Okay, so first things first, we can talk about the compartments. We have a lot of cup holders. We have one center over here. We have two on this side, as you can see with that Sherlock beautiful cup over here. I really like how these cup holders have been designed because you just have to pull them out and it's easy to use. So the thing about these cup holders is that they have so much stability that if you're driving on rough roads, to a certain extent it can manage the weight and also any sort of spillage because it's so well balanced. Now, as we look at other compartments, we can look at this compartment over here, which I would consider the air cooling compartment because there is an air conditioned vent over there which is centralized to the whole air conditioned system, which could cool your water bottle and all that. It's not a refrigerator in any way, but it's good for storing cold items for the most part. Over here, on the other hand, you most probably would use it for documents, your LTO ORCRs, and all that other aspects of things. And you have another compartment over here where you can put alcohol, perfumes, whatever other aspects, wires that you have to connect to the infotainment system. So all in all, space-wise, you have no concern with regards to compartments. Now, if we move over here to buttons, we can see the buttons over here. We have eco mode and power mode. However, if you click eco mode, you will see that your gauge cluster turns into eco mode. However, if you click the eco mode while it's on eco mode, it turns into normal mode, which gives you more power. And then when you come closer to power mode, it completely changes the game and really unleashes the 2.8 liter diesel, and the torque truly pushes you forward. Now, the thing I don't like about this car is this, the gear shift. I think it looks too ordinary and plain, and in the previous models they had a nice wooden touch to it, but personally I feel like it could be improved because it also gets a bit scratched up over the years. And as I can see, this is a 5-year-old car. We can see marks on the sides and even on the panels here on the side, which does not look exactly nice for a vehicle like that. Alright, so sitting in the back seat, first thing I notice is how much headroom I have. There's no problem, no issues over there. And also the seat in front of me is adjusted based on my height. So I'm 6 feet tall, and that was my seating position. So imagine me sitting back here and saying it's comfortable means something. Plus the headroom is good. So all in all, this car has so much features and so much room to accommodate me that I have no cause for concern. But something to consider is this armrest over here. And the thing I like about this armrest is it doesn't collapse onto the seat unlike some armrests do. It actually has some sort of height, and it's perfect for you to relax, lean your chair back and enjoy. And having someone sit beside you, if both of you want to share a drink, there's also a cup holder here that you could put 2 drinks in with ease, and it's very durable. It's functional. However, it makes some sort of rattling sounds, especially when you're driving the car, which I think is something they could fix, as you can hear that sound over there. Something that they placed on the back were tables, and now as this car is 5 years old, I don't think these tables are really a good touch for the vehicle because they don't seem to be that durable. The locking system is already broken. Of course, it's up to the wear and tear of the person. If people would like to eat on these tables, it is possible. However, I find them to be a bit slippery. So as you're driving, let's say you're eating KFC or Jollibee or whatever, that paper that you'll be eating on will keep sliding left and right, and that comes from experience from our test drive. Now, the thing I really like about the back are these beautiful mood lights they've added on top here, and also a nice digital display of the air conditioning over here, which I really like. These mood lights truly change the atmosphere of the car, and even in front there's slight mood lights, which I think really looks soothing and nice. They've chosen a very subtle color of blue that you can adjust the brightness of with the click of a button over here. You can adjust it accordingly. So all in all, the backseat experience is actually more luxurious than you'd think. I mean, you'd see the car from the outside and you actually come to the inside. It has a very premium touch to it. Even if it's not leather, the color combinations altogether perfectly match and fit for this vehicle. Alright, so now to adjust these seats, it's a fairly simple process. Unlike the older model, you have to pull out 2 levers. This one is just one flick over here, and it pushes right over there. Now back here, you have the seats. You just have to push it up, and you also have an adjustment over here on the side. Now, as I go to the back, as I mentioned a while ago, I felt like it's a bit too tight over here, because if I lean my seat back and I put these seats down here and I bring them up, and let's say this is too upright, I push it back here, and you heard that? I'm stuck up here. So it's not really for people at my height. I think kids can sit here very easily, no problems. I mean, it's surprisingly, people are saying this is an 8-seater vehicle, but I don't even think 2 people should even sit back here unless they are much shorter or they're your kids or something like that. So it's a bit tight, and I wouldn't recommend it completely, but I like how the seat folds and how you can store more goods accordingly. And you know, what's interesting? You could actually put these 2 seats down, put these 2 seats down, and actually have a long leg room like you're in a limousine for some sorts, right? So that's an interesting touch that you could do, because you also have aircon vents here. So it gives you an interesting vibe as well. Okay, so now I'm going to start the car, and we're going to have the full-on drive experience of this vehicle. So starting the vehicle over here, and you can hear the noise. You can clearly hear that it's a diesel vehicle. So I'm going to put up the windows, turn on the air conditioning. The air conditioning is very good. It's cool, nice in the center, and putting it to drive, and let's go. So the first thing I notice about this vehicle is that The insulation's actually much better. The insulation is so much better compared to the previous model of Innova, where you could really hear the engine rattle, which is something I don't really like. Now, that sound you probably just heard was that when you hit around 25 kilometers per hour, the doors automatically lock. So that's a nice safety feature as well, that you don't have to manually lock each doors, as these are all auto lock from the driver's side seat. And as well, auto windows on the driver's side seat only, and everything else has to be pressed and touched. Now, it's a bit rough on these roads right here, and I noticed suspension is rather smooth. And compared to a lot of vehicles, like the Avanza especially, there's a big difference in terms of suspension. Because the Avanza, you can really feel the car rattle and shake, and there's a lot of moving parts here and there because it's a little more plasticky, while this one feels much more premium. Now, I'm going to take this car to the highway and I'm going to test out different modes on this vehicle. Currently, I'm on the eco mode, so I can notice about eco mode as I release the gas and I'm driving. The thing I notice about eco mode is the car automatically starts to decelerate and start to slow down, which is, I think, a way and safety feature for a certain extent, especially if you're driving long distance and you don't want to press the gas and waste too much also of brake fluids in the process. So it automatically slows down, and I think other cars do this as well, and it's a good feature to have. But now if I switch the car into normal mode, which it is in right now, normal mode does not give that same feature. It does not slow the car down, it just keeps letting it roll, whether it's on drive or neutral accordingly. So that's an interesting touch on the car, but I think it's really good for gas mileage. As mentioned a while ago, this car gives an average of 9 to 10 kilometers per liter on the city driving, and also 10 to 12 kilometers per liter on highway driving. Of course, all dependent on traffic and road circumstances. The steering wheel, though, however, is a bit on the heavier side. That's something I notice about this car, and I think a test for a good steering wheel would be if you can move the steering wheel with one finger, you know it's very light. However, this one just slides through. It's a bit hard to maneuver and turn all around with one finger, so it's on the heavier side to drive. But I notice about this car, it's rather planted on the road. It feels a bit heavy, but that's, I think, part of the experience of it being a rough and tough built car. Now, it doesn't feel too big to drive, and also, as mentioning, the hood is very seeable, so I can see the car in front of me and I can see my hood as well, so that I can gauge my distance between cars. And I think that's a really important factor as well, considering we're driving in the city. And now I'm in the bit of a stretch of a road. I'm gonna put the car on power mode and see how it rides with that 360 Newton meters of torque. Okay, so I just hit that 3400 RPM and I could feel the car push itself forward, which I think was very nice. I'm gonna go back to 3400. I hit 4000 RPM and it has a nice pull, no doubt about that. This car is quick, and if you're climbing up mountains, I think it's perfect for you to take your family and friends with ease. You can have a lot of weight and this car is just going to pull it. Now I'm going to go to normal mode and see how it pulls. There is still enough power, but you don't feel that much torque on the normal mode compared to the power mode. While the eco mode, I think the eco mode speaks for itself. It's more of a chill drive. Basically, everyone most of the time is going to be on eco mode. The only reason maybe they need power mode is if they're overtaking or if they're trying to climb up really high steep hills rather, for that matter. So all in all, this car is perfect. A to B car from that regard. But with regards to luxury and comfort, of course there could still be some sort of improvements. But to summarize this video, after 5 years, is this car worth getting? I definitely say yes, because it's a workhorse. Maintenance is still very affordable. Now let's talk price of this car. This car basically ranges anywhere from the J model to the V model. J ranging to 950,000 pesos, all the way up to the V model being around 1.490, so 1,490,000 pesos for the V variant, which the difference with the V variant is you have a nicer interior, slightly nicer interior compared to the G, and also you have auto open of doors, so you could just hold the key. The keyless entry basically, and it's easy to open. The chrome side mirrors is a factor as well for the V variant, while the G doesn't have that. But I'd say the G is the sweet spot for this car, and it's much cheaper, well, around 200,000 to 150,000 cheaper, depending if you get the manual transmission G 2.8 diesel variant, or if you choose to get the automatic, which is what we're driving right now. So in total, this is a really good car, and right now I'd actually like to let a civilian drive this car to get a full experience on how this car fares on the road for himself and what he thinks of it.
Alright, so I don't know what I'm doing here, but some strange Indian man asked me to test drive his car, so give it a shot. Please don't shoot me. Don't shoot me. I still have like 3 kids. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, so for context, I drive an Innova myself, but it's the predecessor, so I have lots of experience with that. It's a 2.5 manual G. So let's see how this compares to that. So I'm just gonna go adjust my seat. So warning for everybody, don't adjust your seat and have your foot on the brake at the same time, because if you do, this is what happens. Okay. Do you mind if I move it a bit?
Dude, of course.
Okay, what is it? Okay, lever. See? So, brake first, stop, adjust your seat, and go on with your life. Anyways, we're gonna go test this out. I've actually been pretty excited to test it out because, I don't know, you get used to driving a certain car and you start thinking about, you know, how it's like to upgrade, how it feels like. So I'm very grateful that this weird Indian man, this gigantic Indian man, kidnapped me so I could test drive this car. Anyways, we're gonna go on eco mode. So first impressions, steering wheel's a bit lighter than the older Innova, which I drive. It's a lot easier to move, but definitely not on the lighter side compared to most cars. So right now we are on eco mode, and it's a very linear acceleration, so it's easy to deal with. There's no jumpy, jolty kind of acceleration going on. Brakes, let me see. So brakes, they're a lot softer, so it has a bit of give before you finally get that full stop. Feels very planted, but brakes could use a little bit of improvement. But they do stop. They stop. Yeah, not too shabby. Really fun to drive. So comfort wise, compared to the older Innova seats, which are strangely enough very firm, so you have a very firm shape for the Innova seats, but these feel a little more plush. You know, I can recline on them a bit and kind of give my back, you know, a bit of ease. I don't have to really like be forced into this whole poor posture situation. And I am pretty sure just by me mentioning that, you're probably straightening your back and rolling your shoulders back, so that's your daily sponsored reminder to check your posture. Anyways, overall, would I upgrade from my older Innova? If this came in a manual, which it does if you check the first part of the video, if you didn't remember that, I do recommend you check it first, because I probably spent 2 hours trying to cut and splice that. So would I? So if it came in a manual, which it does, I definitely would. It's a good, nice, sizable upgrade. It actually feels a little bit more compact compared to the older Innova, which is, you know, quite a relief, because it's easier for you to navigate through everything. Yeah, I feel a lot more secure. So let's say if I'm going into a drive and I'm just going around town, you know, dealing with smaller spots, it's really easy to drive. It's not like this whole thing where on the outside the newer Innova looks really huge, but when you actually get in the driver's seat, it's a lot more compact feeling, which means that you feel a lot more secure in the road. It's not like you're going to go drive and accidentally smack somebody with your, you know, your side mirrors, and then get a formal complaint a few days later after they track your plate number. So don't hit and run. Yeah, overall, It's a pretty fun car to drive. I mean, most people won't think much about it. They'll think about it as a mom car or an errand car, but in general, it's so comfortable. It's so practical for Philippine roads. Like right now, we're driving through a very tight portion of EDSA, and I can just get by with ease. And it's definitely one of those cars that surprises you, because the more you drive it, the more you get acquainted with the fact that it's probably going to be the best driving experience you'll have in the city compared to other cars in your fleet. You feel a lot more secure because of its bigger size. You can drive normally and not take extreme precautions to ensure that you don't smack into things. You know, it's easy to jump to the newer Innova from like any size of car. Whether you drive a bigger car, whether you drive a much smaller car, it's a lot easier to transition to it. So if you have any apprehensions about trying to, you know, upgrade to an Innova or basically just change car types in your fleet, it's definitely worth giving a try. Like, so as I was talking about how narrow and compact and actually surprisingly nimble it is, right now we're driving through some of the most crowded, like some of the tightest roads in Manila, which are here in Bangal. And they're, you know, there's so much more space. There's so much more space in terms of like what you're perceiving when you're in the driver's seat. And that helps a lot because you can watch out for what's on your side. It's easier for you to clear intersections like this. So definitely 10 out of 10 in that regard. Yeah, this is not a sponsored video. If you would like to sponsor us, you gotta eat, man. Go ahead, sponsor us. Anyways, strange Indian man is telling me that my job is finished, so hopefully I can go back home and see my family. Stay tuned to the news specifically to see if I'm missing